What is up, FNL podcast listeners? This is your host, Jake Hirsch, and I'd like to welcome you to another show, another episode, and I hope that you guys enjoyed the last one. I've got some really good feedback. People loved the Mark Pavlich interview, and I really did too. I think it was one of my favorite interviews. The guy is, you can call Mark a lot of things, but entertaining would have to be one of them for sure. I had a great time. So I want to thank Mark Pavlich again for coming on the show. And we got a great show lined up today, man. I'm really excited about this guest. But we'll dive into that a little bit later. Because I need to bitch first. I need to rant a little bit here. I have not been sleeping well lately. And I don't know if it's because I stay up late and I watch TV and movies and all that stuff. But you know what? My daughter's off right now on vacation. On school vacation, summer break, and we've been hanging out, man. We've been watching movies and catching up, marathoning shows, and it's been a blast, man. I'm really enjoying that aspect of it. So, but we've got 3 dogs here in the house at Casa de la Hershey. 3 little Mexican dogs, and they are, what's the breed? They're Shih Tzus, and it's a mom, a dad, and a baby. And I don't know if a lot of you guys have a lot of experience with dogs, but having multiple dogs in the house, I know one you can probably, train really well and kind of create that bonding relationship. But when there's 3, I'm telling you right now, man, it's like a group home here in the house. There's one kid out, doing God knows what, smoking cigarettes. It's the same thing with dogs, man. I got dogs staying out late. They're partying, they're smoking cigarettes, out past curfew. And yeah, I feel like I'm raising kids all over again, man. Anyway, we got one, the mama, and she just, oh man, if I sleep in even like a half an hour, she is on it, dude. She barks and barks until I get up, and I don't know. I've tried everything. I've tried citronella. I don't know if you guys have tried that before. It's like a spray, and it's a really tart scent. I'm sure you've smelled citronella candles. But with a citronella, man, what it does, it's like a collar, and if the dog barks really loud, the citronella sprays a whiff up into the dog's face, and it's supposed to curb them from barking. So, in all my infinite wisdom, I go out and I buy a couple of citronella collars, and the first couple of times they're freaking out. They bark and it blew up in their face, and they kind of stopped barking. And then a few days later, they're pretty sensitive. The dog sneezed and the thing went off. And anyway, it just didn't work out the way that I had hoped them to. I don't know. My dogs are a different breed, man. I swear to God. Within a week, they were putting citronella on crackers, on their veggie trays. They were kicking out the citronella, man. They were fine with it. They become very adapted to it. So next up, we decided to go and I know my buddy Jimmy's probably going to give me shit for this one because he's a major animal lover, but I went out and I bought him shock collars. And I'd be damned if those didn't do the fucking trick either, because within about a week, my dog literally was just barking, didn't give a shit if it was getting shocked. So it was either 2 things. I'm figuring it was either 2 things that, my dog was doing. It was like either 1, the collar is defective and it's just not working, or 2, I've come to the conclusion that my dog is possibly a sadomasochist and really enjoys pain and, gets off on it. I have no idea what the answer is here, but these animals have completely overpowered any type of contraption or tool that will beat the barking. They've won the war. So I don't know if it's a matter of them, they met up one night over drinks and they were just like, you know what, we're going to fight back here. We're going to fight the power. But, yeah, clearly they're winning the war. So anyway, yeah, I haven't been sleeping very well. The dog's been waking me up in the morning. But, so anyway, I don't know, man. My days, the last little while, I've been taking some time off, and I'll, go downstairs and I'll do some writing and I'll work on the podcast and, try to book some guests and stuff like that. So I've been taking it easy. And the funny thing is that lately I've been watching some daytime television. Sometimes I'll just, turn it off. I'll just, I'll drink a pot of coffee and I'll just watch TV, or sometimes I'll turn it off and I'll just write. But lately I've been watching some of these shows on daytime TV, and I don't know if there must be that big of an audience that they're appealing to, if they're, running these shows throughout the day. But I don't know if a lot of you guys have had a chance to watch some of these shows, but if you ever, I'm sure, have taken a sick day from work, or if you stay home during the week, or you run an odd shift or something like that, you might have seen some of these shows. Maury Povich is slowly becoming one of my favorites. Divorce Court. I don't know if it's Divorce Court anymore, if it's just Court. Anyway, they got a new judge like every week, it seems like. There's like a new judge and jury show every week, where people just go up there, and there's really no humility whatsoever. I mean, these people are just spill the beans, man. And like some shows you can tell are very scripted. You watch some of the shows like, and since I'm on this rant, I'm just going to go ahead and finish it. But on a side note, I don't understand why all the reality shows that are on the West Coast are all these really prominent, rich, hoity-toity, reality shows like The Kardashians and, Tori and Dean and The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and all the reality shows in the South, all the ones in like Texas and Florida and Louisiana, they're all just like the most retarded people they can find. Like, it's really, I don't know if it's a good representation of us down here, or the people that live in some of the southern states, but it's pretty bad, man. I mean, you got shows like Duck Dynasty, and don't even get me started on those, rednecks, but Duck Dynasty and Lizard Lick Towing and, Gator Boys and Swamp Guys and we've just got some really bad, Here Comes Honey Boo Boo and Dancing, or, Gypsy Moms and shit. And on the West Coast, everybody looks fantastic. Tons of plastic surgery, and, everybody looks amazing. So I'm a little disenchanted with that whole thing. I don't like to watch reality TV, but anyway, this daytime stuff, man, has just been great. But anyway, the point being is that some of these reality shows, are scripted, clearly. I mean, these little fake fights they have on pawn shop shows and towing vehicles and stuff like that. You see guys running out of the house and fighting and stuff. I mean, a lot of that shit is scripted. I mean, you'd have to be completely dense to not think that stuff was all scripted. But anyway, some of these ones during the day, man, clearly are not. These people are not actors. I'm quite confident saying that. And I don't know what has happened. If it's just been like a certain time things have evolved to this, I don't know. But it's downright scary, man, to see how people talk, to see the dirty laundry that they throw out and the air. And I was watching some Maury Povich today, man, and I'll tell you right now, there is some backwards folks up on that show. Same with what was the other show I was watching today? I think it was that divorce one or that court one anyway, and this guy was just like putting all this stuff out, and he was like she's sending naked pictures of herself, and she's spreading her legs, and she's pulling her dress up, and she's hitting on my friends, and she slept with like 20 guys, and da da da. And the chick isn't even denying it. She's just like, yep, I sure did. And what the hell do you care if I did? Like, there was no humility whatsoever. Like, no shame in her game at all. But the funny thing is that I was watching some of these shows, and then I'll watch the flip side of that. Like, I don't know, a couple nights ago, my daughter was watching, she's 16, right? So she still loves the Fault in Our Stars and The Notebook and kind of the romantic stuff. And she was watching, what was that? It's a famous, Pride and Prejudice, which is, a famous work of literature. And I was sitting there working on some stuff on my laptop, and my daughter was sitting there watching it. And so, of course, I've got an ear on the TV, kind of in the background. It's kind of noise, but I started watching some of the show, and I was just like blown away, man, because I was hearing them talk back in the day, and they talked with such amazing, like, proper English. And I mean, this is the time when we were, pretty much descendants of people from, Europe and stuff like that. So, I mean, Pride and Prejudice was, back in the Civil War and stuff days. So, these are people that came to America and, had children and stuff. But what I was blown away is that they were talking pretty damn proper back in the day. And to think about it, how far we've come as a country, and we don't sound like that at all. We don't sound educated at all. Like, our kids, they don't sound educated. I mean, some of them do. Don't get me wrong. But stay home one day, fire up some chicken soup, get in your underwear, put on a blanket on the couch, and watch daytime TV, and tell me how far we've come as a country. That is some scary shit, man. I mean, I was watching Pride and Prejudice, and like I said, it was literally like, the guy was like, "In my dearest earnest, I shall attempt to court the delicate lady with such extraordinary caution. My effervescence shall go unrewarded if I done so otherwise. Now it's..." And I'm just like, wow, that dude sounded like a prince. I mean, he sounded good. Now it's like, you ever buy a bitch a drink up in the club and, be like, "Damn, girl, you work at Subway? Because you just gave me a motherfucking footlong." I mean, that's where we've come in the way that we talk now. And I'm just like, how did we get from, proper English voices and, dialogue to that? To, calling people my bae. I think that's one of the new ones, bae, and selfies, and now this type of shit, man. We're going down. This country, not even this country, man, fuck it. All the countries are going down because we have not evolved very educationally. I don't even know that's a word. I'm just as dumb as some of the people on TV. But we have not evolved very well. And I don't know. Maybe we need to get back there. Maybe take some history lessons. Anyway, let's move on to the show. I'm done bending your ear on all the shit going on over here during the day, and the Shih Tzu army taking control of the Casa de la Hirsch. So today's guest, we have a very special guest. I've been a fan of this guy for a long time. As you can tell in the interview, I talk about a clip that I saw of him back in the Craig Kilborn days, which was quite a while ago. But my guest today is Alec Sulkin, and he began writing for the Late Late Show with Craig Kilborn a long time ago. And as I said, I saw him back then, and I just kind of always saw his name floating around. And it might not be a name that you instantly recognize, but if you pay attention to what happens behind the scenes, his name is in a lot of places that are very successful, and he's just a very gifted and talented writer, and he's also humble. I mean, Alec Sulkin was so gracious, man, as a guest, and he even wrote me a nice note afterwards and said that he would love to come back on the show, that he really had a good time. And There's also a part of me where I'm always feeling like maybe I'm a bit rushed with interviews because I'm always afraid that my guests have to. I mean, because it's a different dynamic when you have a guest in studio with you. If you have someone sitting across the table from you, you kind of get an idea of where they're at, if they're enjoying themselves, if they're, I mean, so when you do an interview over the phone, you don't know, if they got to go take a dump, or if they're, picking their nose, or they're rolling their eyes at their friends going on, listen to this jerk off as he's asking me all the same questions I've been asked 100 times. But, so it's a different vibe, obviously, when you're over the phone. It's, there's a certain intimacy that's lost when you're not in studio with somebody and you can look across the table and see that this person is very engaged in the conversation. And that's my stuff. That's not the guest stuff. That's my stuff, because I automatically assume that, this person is just giving me the most time that they can, and they're always in a rush to go. And that is not the case. Alec was very gracious with his time. I asked him if he had any time limitations, and he said no. But again, you don't want to overdo it either and have people on your show and sit there for an hour. I'm sure they've got stuff to do. So I kept that in mind, and I kept the interview. I thought it ran a pretty good length, and we covered a lot of ground. Alec is somebody that I want to have on the show again down the road. We talk about, all the animated series stuff that he's been behind, and some of the primetime stuff that he was behind as well. Like the show Dads on Fox and stuff like that. But he is the guy, behind the guy. And like I said, you've seen some of the promos for it, Family Guy and The Cleveland Show and Ted. And, they just released the movie A Million Ways to Die in the West, starring Seth MacFarlane. And anyway, you'll hear the interview. I thought it was really insightful. And again, I cannot thank Alec enough for coming on the show. I look forward to having him back again sometime. So I want you guys to tell me what you think. Be sure to send in all your ideas and comments, and if you have anybody that you think would be a good guest on the show in the future, by all means, hit me up. The website I just launched a new website, and that is www.FridayNightLightsPodcast.com. And you can find those links on my Twitter page and on my Facebook fan page as well. And I'd like to thank you guys for all the support and love that you guys have been pouring in. It's huge. And we got some really exciting shows coming up. I got some guests that I think you guys are going to find very interesting. And we're going to have a little bit of a roundtable podcast coming back again with the boys back up in Canada. And before I forget, I want to say thank you to my buddy Mike Russell, who was kind of my social media guy, the guy who's, takes care of the website and uploads episodes, and kind of, he does a lot of the work in the background as well. So I want to say thank you, Mike, for taking the time to help me out so much and to get everything looking sharp and the way that it is. And again, thank you to all my family and friends and everybody who supports me in the show. And I look forward to many more. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show. And it's Alec Sulkin.
Recording from the heart of Calgary's Red Mile, you're listening to the Friday Night Lights podcast with Jay Hirsch.
Human beings in a mob. What's a mob to a king? What's a king to a god? What's a god to a non-believer who don't believe in anything? Get out alive. Alright. No church in the wild.
Tears on the mausoleum floor. Blood stains the Coliseum doors.
My guest today began his writing career for The Late Late Show with Craig Kilborn, before working on the Fox hit animated series Family Guy, where he went on to write, produce, and provide voices for hundreds of episodes since 2005. Since then, he has been the person behind the scenes on The Cleveland Show, Dads, amongst numerous other projects. He co-wrote the smash hit movie Ted and has also wrote for the 85th Academy Awards. He is a 3-time Emmy nominee and is fresh off the release of his newest movie, A Million Ways to Die in the West, starring Seth MacFarlane, Charlize Theron, and Liam Neeson. It's an honor to welcome my guest, Alec Sulkin. Alec, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Boy, that was probably the best intro I've ever had. Very, very well researched. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Absolutely. Well, hey, man, it's a huge honor to have you on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I've been a huge fan, and I think you've been kind of known throughout the years as the guy kind of behind the scenes on things, so I think it's important for people to get to know that it's not just a matter of Seth MacFarlane waving a magic wand and everything turns to gold. I mean, there's a huge team behind them that all work really hard. How did you start off? Or actually, let me start with this. Where did you grow up?
I grew up outside of Boston, and I grew up there, lived there my whole childhood, went to high school and college in that area, and really loved growing up there.
And when did you make the move out to LA or out in the West?
I moved out to Los Angeles now 15 years ago in 1999.
Wow.
For the Late Late Show with Craig Kilborn.
Okay, and what was it like growing up out there, out on the East Coast? I mean, did you always know you had a knack for writing and stuff, or? Well,
I don't know. I think I did a lot of it in high school and to some extent in college, and I tried my hand at stand-up comedy after college in New York City for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. So I think after a couple of years of that, I realized that I was probably best served behind the scenes writing as opposed to up on stage. I just never quite had the energy to be like a stand-up comedian. It requires just a lot of energy and commitment, and I really could never bring myself to put that much into it. But I realized that I did enjoy writing the jokes. So I think I knew, probably since high school that I had a talent for it, and right. But then realized that I wanted to make it my career probably sometime in the mid-90s.
Right. That's awesome. Now, like I know a lot of people, are obviously aspiring writers, and I mean, it would probably be their dream to get on, a show like that. Is it? If you can walk me through that, is it a matter of kind of like writing jokes and sending them in, or do you? Are we
talking about Family Guy, or are we talking about
the Late Late Show? Yeah, with Craig.
Okay, yes. Well, that was just a matter of I knew someone who was one of the original, one of the first writers staffed on the show.
Okay.
And so I knew him from New York, and was able to send my material in to him, basically just a packet of jokes, kind of about the news and some sketch ideas and things like that.
Right.
And so I was lucky enough to get hired off of that material. And, within a week, I had packed up and left New York and was out here in Los Angeles, and I haven't looked back since.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, did you belong to any type of comedy troupes or anything like that, or did you go to college after high school, or was it pretty much?
I did. I went to Connecticut College in New London, Connecticut, and then from there went into New York City to try doing stand-up. But I was never, I was in, actually, I should say I was in a sketch group in New York, and we had a great time performing and doing sketches for a couple of years. And actually one of the other guys in the group I work with regularly. He's another writer on Family Guy now. So
okay.
we were lucky enough to just end up in the same place.
What's his name?
His name is John Viner.
John. Okay, I've heard that name. Yeah.
Yeah. He does a lot of the voices. He's been a writer there for a while. Very, very talented, funny guy.
Yeah. Well, I follow a lot of you guys on Twitter, and so I mean, just right. Like daily, you guys are pumping them out. But it's who else is on there? I think Julius Sharp.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
He's hilarious. I met him doing stand up in New York as well.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and he's a hilarious guy.
Yeah, it seems like a small community almost, though. Like it seems like a lot of writers have tried their hand at stand-up comedy, but at just some point realized that perhaps they're more of the written word comedy type of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that it just, something happens where I think you realize to make it as a stand-up and get it into that sort of rarefied air of a I guess you'd say like a known stand-up comedian, someone who's nationally known, or it just takes so much effort and work and really hard times and a lot of time on the road, and it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think there's a realization somewhere along the way that you can put your comedy to sort of more efficient use. I won't say better use, but I mean, certainly for me, I can do what I do sitting on a couch all day.
Right.
So, it's not required that I pile into a van and drive, sort of from college to college every day.
Yeah.
And that's just, I think people along the way just realize that might be better for them, which I certainly realized for myself.
Sometimes the starving artist thing doesn't appeal to everybody here.
It's not great.
I've got a buddy that actually does stand up comedy, and it's, I mean, he's a single dad, and he's constantly traveling and humping it out show to show. So it can be, I can only imagine.
It's a grind.
Yeah, definitely. Now. How were you growing up? I mean, like in your house, were your folks? I don't know your personal situation, but
right.
Did you grow up in a house where comedy was pretty encouraged? I mean, were you always the funny kid in the group?
Well, definitely. I mean, comedy was certainly encouraged in my house growing up. I mean, we used to, all watch kind of like Bugs Bunny together and all that stuff. And my mom would always show me different movies from the sort of 50s and 60s and 70s that she thought were funny, and I remember a lot of them, and they definitely had an impact on me. And my dad and I certainly, we went to every Woody Allen movie in the theater from sort of the early 80s through the mid 90s.
Right.
And it was definitely it's a big thing in our family, comedy. And as far as being the funny one in the group, I mean, in school and everything like that, I definitely was sort of the class clown. And that's, it's all part of the defense mechanism of growing up and being a teenager and all that kind of stuff. But,
absolutely, yeah. And
there are all sorts of deep-seated issues there, but it was definitely a lot of laughs along the way. So, I can't complain about that.
That's awesome, man. So I guess for there's a process for writing, obviously, and I mean, is it something that you have to dedicate time to each day, or do you wait for things to come to you, or I know for me growing up, I was always watching what was it, the Larry Sanders Show, and where they had like Jeremy Piven and the other guy on there was like. They had like a writer's room, and they're just constantly combing through newspapers. Is it a forced thing where you've got time set aside each day to actually write, or is it again something that just kind of comes to you and you're constantly writing stuff down or saving it on your phone type of thing?
Well, I think that it's a combination of both. I think with the Late Late Show, which was sort of similar to Larry Sanders in format, you were forced to sit down for a certain number of hours every day and look through the newspapers or online and figure out what the best things to write about were that day.
Right.
But as we progress, certainly at Family Guy, we're all together kind of in a big writer's room for most of the day working on stuff. I mean, it's less about the news, but we're coming up with jokes together. But in terms of personal writing and writing other things like Twitter and things like that, I don't usually force myself to sit down and think of stuff. It's more what you said, like, if something comes to me, I'll sort of jot it down on my phone.
Right, kind of observational humor and stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. What have been some of the funnest writers' rooms that you've been in?
Well, definitely Family Guy is right up there. I mean, it's just a great room, and you really have to stay on your toes. Everybody's very funny, and they can be kind of cruel and all that, but it just helps the comedy, and certainly the nature of the show is kind of that way. So
right,
it's definitely a cool room. There was actually a show called The Pits that was briefly on Fox, where I was in a room with Seth and Mike Scully and a few other Simpsons guys, and that was a great room. And the room that we had on Dad's last year was a really fantastic room filled with like really funny guys. Julia Sharp was in there, and John Viner and Mike Scully again, and
Yeah, Scully's great, man.
Tom
he's-
Gamble and Max Cross. They're hilarious guys.
Wow.
So that was a great room.
That's amazing, man. I could not imagine sitting around. Now like when you met, like you have a writing partner, Wellesley. I want to say
Wellesley Wild.
Wellesley Wild. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like a porn name there for a second. I was like,
I know.
holy shit, Wellesley Wild. Now you met him on the Craig Kilborn show, right?
Actually, no, we met in college.
Oh, you met in college. Okay.
We did, yeah. And we've just had the good fortune to work together for many years since then.
When did you guys start deciding to write as a team, or is that something that you kind of had always kind of partnered up with from the beginning?
I think, no, we decided to write as a team when we were at Kilborn, and we decided that we were going to leave Kilborn and try and write on sitcoms.
Okay.
And so we realized that we had a better chance of getting staffed on a show if we were a team. It's just a better value for the show when we're just newcomers. So we decided to team up at that point. And so we worked together on the first sitcom we were staffed on, which was that show, The Pits, and then we worked together for a couple of years on Family Guy.
Mm-hmm.
But then they were nice enough to let us split up, but that was, just for financial reasons, not creative reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I saw a clip of you, I think, oh man, it was on Craig Kilborn. It was a long time ago. And I think you were doing a sketch of, I think it was Mike Grayson. Which
sure.
Dude, that was the fucking funniest
The guy
thing
who
I've
said
seen,
everything. The guy who said everything.
I think you said it was like synchronized sucking or something like that. Was the Was,
oh right.
With the sketch stuff, is that something that you guys came up with as well, or is it like a team effort? Everybody kind of pitches in, because I've heard, like things like on SNL and stuff where people write brilliant jokes, but then by the time it gets to the actual production, there's only a fraction of your joke that's actually left standing. Is that pretty accurate, or do people rip it apart?
Well, I mean, I think that's probably accurate to Saturday Night Live, but I think I've been fortunate enough to the places where I've worked, like The Late Late Show and Family Guy, where if something is funny and people laugh at it initially, it generally stays the same. Mm-hmm. When it airs. So luckily you don't have too much of that, fracturing of the joke until it gets on the air.
Right. Gotcha. Now you went on to join Family Guy in 2005, and what was it like back then? And did you have any idea that it would become what it is today?
Well, I think luckily, it already was something when I got there. So people were pretty excited about it back then. So I think I had a good idea that, the show was going to stick around for a while, and you could really tell that, the fan base was so strong even back then.
Right.
And fans were pretty passionate about the show. So, yeah, I think even right when I started, I knew that it was, something special.
Right. It was going to be around for a while. I remember watching it. I think it debuted after a Super Bowl, and the first time. And then I remember, and I think back then, I don't think you were writing on the first couple of seasons, right? Like before it got canceled. That's probably why it ended up getting canceled, right?
Right. Yeah. They didn't know what they were doing. They finally got it right.
They probably brought you on and saved the show. But so I mean, I remember watching it, and I remember seeing the show and just thinking, man, like there's something about this that I've never seen, and I think that's kind of like the magic around creating really good shows, is that you're watching something that's never really been done before, and that kind of brings me to my next question, like around like that the movie Ted. Now it was obviously a smash hit. I mean, it's kind of become like a cult, a classic now. And I think watching that movie, I was kind of like, I've never in a million years would picture a teddy bear, doing blow and, banging hookers and smoking weed and like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, so is that, when you come up with those types of ideas, is that something that you just know is going to be a hit because no one's thought of it before? Or is it just something where you're like, man, I've been tossing this idea around for a long time and it's time to bring it?
Well, the idea was for the foul-mouthed teddy bear that comes to life was totally Seth's. But I think that along the way, I mean, I don't think that we knew that it was going to be a hit just because it had never been done before.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the timing was just perfect with Ted. I mean, everything came together so nicely. Certainly the special effects of the bear were amazing,
Mm-hmm.
and that was something that we really didn't get to see until a later version of the film. So, for a while we were watching early cuts of the movie, and there was no bear in it, just the voice.
I see.
Kind of a crude, a representation of where the bear would be. So we didn't know. I mean, I think once the bear was fully animated and you could tell that, you really felt for him.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's when we started to feel and hope that the movie would be successful.
Wow. Yeah. And it ended up being just a crazy. I mean, it's just an amazing show. Now, before I get into what you're working on next, I also wanted to talk about, you stopped working on Family Guy to focus on another show that you guys had done called Dads. And that was a sitcom on Fox, and it ran for a season. Unfortunately, it didn't get renewed, but I mean, I thought the show was great. It had an amazing cast. It had Giovanni Ribisi. It had Seth Green on it. Do you feel like networks don't really give shows like long enough time to build that relationship with an audience the way that they used to? Like before, they would let something run for a couple of seasons before they would pull the plug. But now it seems kind of like it's like a one and done type of attitude.
Yeah. Well, I think it's tough now. It's tough all around. Just because there's so many, the amount of entertainment that you have to choose from now as a viewer is so great. And that's a good thing. But it's just tough for shows to find their way or to really establish a fan base or gain a purchase with the audience. And I also, it's tough for networks because they're, let's face it, network viewership is just going down with each year. The more entertainment gets spread out, the tougher it is for them. Mm-hmm. So they're under such pressure to succeed now that, I understand that, they don't necessarily have the time to nurture something to be successful over several years. But that being said, I think you're right that if they were to take the time to nurture some of these shows, I think they could stick around and be hits.
Right.
I think Fox hasn't necessarily figured out the best way to do that with a lot of their shows.
Mm-hmm.
I think someplace like CBS, for example, they take a little more care with the shows that that they air, and certainly with their multi-camera comedies.
Right.
They seem to know how to nurture those shows a little bit better than some of the other networks, which is, I think, why you see that they're still successful with their multi-camera comedies, where the other networks have kind of fallen back.
Right. Now, once you were working on Dads, and I know that kind of fell under the umbrella of something that Seth was backing. I keep referring to him as Seth like he's a good buddy of mine, but Seth MacFarlane.
No, you can call him Seth. That's fine.
It comes out natural.
He'd be okay with it.
All right. No, I know that was something that kind of fell under that umbrella, and I know that probably with the history of them canceling Family Guy, they're probably and then the success of Ted and stuff like that. I would imagine a lot of networks are probably afraid to turn down something like that. Is it difficult to pitch a pilot or just for some of our listeners, I know I had a lot of questions around, what's it like pitching a pilot or a show to a massive network?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's, I think you're right that I think that people want to be in business with Seth now, and especially after Ted, which you may know that Fox, the Fox movie division actually passed on Ted.
Right.
And so that's why it ended up at Universal, and I think that that's a decision that obviously now they deeply regret.
Didn't someone get fired over that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that was sort of the feeling. I don't think that they came out and said, this is why you're getting fired, but I think people kind of put two and two together and figured out this is why you got fired.
Right.
So when we came along pitching Dads, and Seth was in the room, it was kind of the first thing that Seth had pitched to them after Ted. So I think that they were looking to buy, I don't want to say whatever we came in with, but I think that they were predisposed to like what we were offering them. So yeah, I think that definitely helped. But in terms of pitching, it's kind of what you would picture. It's like just a few people around a big conference table in a conference room at a network building.
Right.
And you're just trying to convey what you think is going to be funny about your show to people who are either smiling and laughing or staring at you stone-faced. And hopefully it's the former and not the latter.
Right.
But both happen.
Yeah, I would imagine not everybody gets, everybody's type of comedy. And I mean, that kind of brings me up to my next question. I mean, how do you know what's going to work and what isn't going to work? I mean, I know I asked you before, like, kind of where do you bounce your comedy off of it? Is it just other writers, or do you have family and friends that you just kind of say, hey, this is some pretty funny shit, I need to bring this out?
Well, when it comes to Twitter, it's no one. It's just you just send it out there because I think that, I've sort of realized that I can rely on myself for that. When it comes to other stuff, yeah, I think that, the people that I work with a lot, sometimes I'll ask them to take a look at something, and, I value their feedback, and so that's usually how that goes. I mean, because I feel like I've got a good group of friends and a good group of funny friends, and so I can ask them to take a look at something, and they'll always oblige.
Right. Now some of the material on Family Guy and some of the shows has always been known. I mean, even the show Dads. I mean, it was always been known for pushing limits and being a bit controversial. How do you know when a joke is too much, or is there anything you feel should be off limits, or is it where you guys constantly push and see if the network pushes back?
Well, it's funny. I feel like, with network television, you have some obvious limitations. There are certain words you can't say.
Sure.
There are certain topics that you can't really joke about. But what I don't like is that people on Twitter now have taken to sort of creating a police force about that stuff. They say, well, you can't joke about certain topics on Twitter. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to run out there and make jokes about all those things. But I just think that it's not fair that people would police that. It's a free service. If you don't like what people are saying, you can just not follow them, or simply turn your head slightly to the right, and you don't have to see what people are writing. But it's just, everywhere in society, it feels like there has to be this sort of like militant faction of people wagging their finger and saying, "Oh no, you can't do that," and I'm offended by this. And I think it's okay when it comes to network television, where you have sponsors and families and things watching. But when it comes to a place like Twitter, where it's everybody chooses to be on there, and it's not a paid service, and then I think people should really kind of relax a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Now with the new movie, A Million Ways to Die in the West, critics have been a bit tough on it, but I went to go see it. I think it was the opening night. I think it was like on Thursday or Friday or something like that. and I took my daughter to go see it, and I had read some of the critics in the paper and stuff like that, but I've found. And I think this is just, I don't know if it's just myself or what, but I always find that it never matches up to what the critics say. I went to the movie, and I'm not lying, I'm not bullshit, I'm not kissing your ass here, but I mean, I think I even tweeted you the night when I was in the theater, and I said, people are literally clapping right now. Like when the movie ended, and I've been to a couple of movies where people clap, but I think it was like, like fucking Star Wars or something, like back in '85 or something like that. But I haven't been to a movie in a long time where people have clapped at the end of a movie. I thought it was brilliant, man. Everybody in the theater was clapping, and I mean, there was not, a dry eye in the place, and people were just laughing hysterically, man. It was great. Have you? I mean, there hasn't been a good comedy western probably since Blazing Saddles. I know, a movie like City Slickers, western, but it didn't really take time. Take place in a western period.
Right.
How did you guys all agree that a western was the direction that you guys wanted to go?
Well, I mean, I think that, just as you said, there hasn't been one for a long time, and I think that one of the things that we would joke about often is just kind of the thesis of the whole movie. Is we would often find ourselves joking about how terrible it would have been to live back then.
Right.
Just listing all the different things that were so awful about it, and how lucky we were to be living now, and how we still complain about stuff now, but it would have been way worse then. And then I think that we just realized that, that would make a good movie, just sort of a good, almost like putting Seinfeld in the Old West.
Right.
Just like somebody who just everyone who just sort of hates their lives. So I think that's where it all started. And, I agree with you. I obviously I'm biased, but I do think that the movie has a lot of laughs, and we have seen it with a few test audiences that, as you described, we're kind of just laughing the whole way through, and a couple of applause breaks. So it's always a little confounding to hear the critics sort of pan something when you believe that it's actually very good.
No, absolutely. It actually, I was going to ask you that question. Have you ever snuck into a theater just to watch one of your movies and see how it plays out?
Well, I don't know about sneaking in, because I'm not really someone that people would say like, "Oh my God, there he's one of the three writers."
I guess you got to be really into the writing and comedy scene to know who the superstars are.
Yes. So but I have. I saw Ted in the theater, and I actually have not gone to see A Million Ways yet, because we did see it so many times leading up to it that I feel like I've and I went to the premiere.
Right.
But I will, I'm sure, get to it pretty soon. And that's definitely something I enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like I said, I thought the movie was amazing, man, from start to finish.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, what was it like working on set? It was the majority, because I don't want to give too much away, about the movie for people. It's like I said, it's brand new. It's just been released a week ago. But where did most of the shooting take place? Was there like a soundstage in L.A., or did you guys go out?
No, it was pretty much all out west. I mean, it was. Actually east of LA, but out west.
Right.
It was all in New Mexico.
Oh, no way.
Outside of Santa Fe.
Okay.
And so they built like a whole little town there. Actually, the town was sort of already constructed and had been used in a couple of other movies beforehand, but we kind of made it bigger. So everything was pretty much shot out there, and it was. You did definitely get a sense of why life was so miserable back then. I mean, it's not a pleasant place to be for months on end. But I think it certainly helped the movie have the authentic look of a real Western.
Definitely. Now on the horizon for you, you guys are working on Ted 2. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
And when
we're working on?
Is that like in the screenplay process or?
Yeah, we're almost done with the script, and I think we'll be shooting it later this summer in Boston, and it'll be out next I think it's supposed to be next July.
Okay. Awesome, man. Anything else you're working on, or is there anything else you can give some of the listeners a sneak peek into Ted 2? Are some of the recurring characters going to be back?
Oh, definitely. I think we thought about doing this one without the bear, but then we figured we put him in. So I think you can expect to see most of the characters back, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I think people, they like the first one so much. I think we're going to definitely try and top ourselves in the sequel.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, I know, just giving me a half hour of your time is I'm definitely gracious for that. And I know you got a lot on your plate and a lot of stuff to get done. And I'd love to have you back on the show when Ted 2 comes out. And hey,
sure.
Man, thanks for coming on the show and telling everybody a bit about your journey and how you got here.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for thinking of me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Send me a DM when you want me next.
Awesome. Hey, and just do me a favor, man. Don't unfollow me on Twitter, please. I'm fucking bragging to everybody about it right now. So.
No, I won't.
Thanks a lot, Alec. I really appreciate you coming on, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right, brother. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
I don't know what to do. Oh, brother, I can't believe it's true. I'm so scared.